we open on Season 2 of Fallout with a recap of Season 1. Most of the major points are hit, but with all the joke scenes cut out, thank God for small mercies. This goes on for about 5 or 6 minutes before the show proper starts. The actual start of the show is pre-war America, citizens organised in a peaceful protests, with baseball bats holding a very peaceful discussion on the finer points of sport with a Mr. Handy robot. Along with them are anti-Robcoat trade unionists on strike, seemingly upset about losing their jobs to automation. We shift perspective to inside of a public house with Mr. House on the television, offering aid to the American government. However, given his characterization in Season 1, this is not the Robert Edwin House of New Vegas, and thus I shall henceforth be calling him Senor Bungalow. People at the bar complain that he is a parasite and they did not vote for him. Now, putting a pin in that for the moment, Little Platoon over on TwitX made the observation that Senor Bungalow here is an allegory for Elon Musk, given how both offered to help the US government, both are very rich, and both had the complaint of "we did not vote for him" levelled against them. And I'm finding it hard to disagree with that parallel here. Still, back to the show. In a shocking turn of events, the richest man in America is sitting in that very same bar in a sharp suit, and nobody noticed until he spoke up. Could it be that Senor Bungalow can be added to the list of characters in this show with teleportation powers, and was not there until that very moment? The camera pans around and we get a little speech on how he has power because the American people buy his products, far more than anyone in Washington. The people at the bar, having just seen Senor Bungalow up on the screen and now looking at his exact likeness sitting in their very bar, do not somehow make the mental link and call him a fanboy. Still, the altercation starts to build here, and with 3 of the patrons going over, and Senor Bungalow asks what trade they are in. The big man replies, "construction," leading to Senor Bungalow equating the H&H Tools nail gun to something they would be grateful to use. The patrons suggest he leaves. Now, it could have been left at that by Senor Bungalow showing that he actively wants to engage in conversation with the patrons, calling their occupation obsolete, and that they themselves are too stupid for his intellect to stoop to understand. The 3 men move Senor Bungalow outside, rather conveniently right next to his car, and he provokes them further, getting the big man to hit him. But you see, this is all part of his genius plan, as he opens his trunk to reveal $31 million and says it's all theirs, if they just put this one odd device on the back of their neck. Big man is sceptical, asking what it is, and we get the first bit of the patented deliberate obfuscation, with Senor Bungalow calling it market research. However, unlike Wiltig from Season 1, there is a good reason for not revealing what it is, which we will get to in a moment. Big Man decides that he would rather break Senor Bungalow's hands, claiming they've never been used, which is when his villainous plan is sprung into action. He forcibly inserts the device into Big Man's neck, and pressing a button on a control device, then hands Big Man a baseball bat, and invites him to explain how batting practice works to his 2 friends. Which he does, of course, but after which there is a teeny tiny flaw in the design. You see, it makes the recipient's head explode. So, just after using mind control to murder 3 men, Senor Bungalow is framed as a complete sociopath, and the scene ends. We jump to post-war now, at the town of Novak in the Mojave. The Khans all assembled there. One of them starts telling everyone else about how the person they have there has been tormenting them since before their grandfathers were born, and state the bounty hunter has put them there right in their laps. Which they would all know, of course, given that Novak is about 4 buildings a dinosaur, so there is obviously no need to relay this information to everybody assembled, thus it must be there to provide context for the audience watching. One camera switch and it is shown to be Ghoul Howard strung up. Oh no, how did this happen? Last we saw him, he and Lucy were heading to New Vegas. Only it's not so much of a shock if you've seen the teaser that was put out a week before this aired, showing this exact scene. What is more interesting to me is how exactly Ghoul Howard had been tormenting the Khans for generations, when his very first scene in Season 1 stated he was kept buried and only dug up once a year in order to have pieces cut off, which then presumably grew back. But much with Season 1, ambiguity does the heavy lifting, as we do not know exactly how many years he was kept buried, or why he kept coming after the Khans. Don't think about it, just move on. Ghoul Howard looks past the Khans, clearly believing he is in control of the situation, and says that roughly 15 years ago there was a store here run by Darla, and that he purchased a soda from her. He says she was a reasonable woman, but then the Khans just had to move in. He gives a code phrase, and would you believe it, nothing happens. So he gives it again, and still nothing happens. So he gives it a third time. All the while the Khans, who are intent on executing him, are doing nothing. This, as we see, was supposed to be Lucy's cue to do the old shoot the noose trick, but she hesitates, and it is now the Khans' turn to hang the Ghoul Howard. It is at this point that Lucy decides to stand up and address the Khans, telling them that she and Ghoul Howard had a disagreement over how to plan to get money off them, revealing that the bounty hunter they were talking about earlier was, yes, in fact, Lucy herself. It says the plan was to get handed over and then get free and then kill them all. But her plan was just to ask nicely to both let go and get all their money. In my opinion, it is unfortunate that the character growth that she had in Season 1, showing her slowly hardening thanks to exposure to the wasteland, has regressed somewhat backwards to how she was during the Phillytown gunfight. All the while she is talking, I should point out that Ghoul Howard is choking at the end of a rope, despite not needing to breathe, as established in Season 1. Another point to bring up is how exactly Ghoul Howard knew the Khans were in Novak in the first place, and that they had a bounty out on him, given prior to the events of this episode he had spent roughly 5 days in Los Angeles, and then most of the preceding year buried in a coffin. Once again, don't think about it. The scene is happening now, and that is all that matters. Regardless of that, the Khan leader does not agree to Plan C, and decrees that whoever kills Lucy gets to eat the dog. Nobody starts shooting, of course, giving her the few seconds she needs to line up a shot and shoot the rope, releasing Ghoul Howard. It is only now that they start shooting, and we get to see Lucy trying not to kill anyone by taking shots that only disable. This would be most in character for her if she had not shot her own feral mother in the head in the previous season. Regardless, this gives Ghoul Howard the chance to put out a Derringer type pistol and start shooting a couple of the Khans before Lucy blows up a nearby car. Cue the song Big Iron as Ghoul Howard goes about killing all the Khans in Novak, curiously starting by whipping his rope and barbed wire noose against the helmet of one, staggering him. I guess he has gone to the Lucasfilm School of Combat, where slapping helmets is enough to stun people. Still, he disables the man, takes his gun, kills 2 of the other Khans who are just sitting around and not trying to shoot back, before executing the man on the floor, killing a 4th with a knife, and then 2 more with a grenade launcher, and finishing off 2 final ones with a hand grenade. The 2 leave, and we get a shot of Ghoul Howard healing his neck with a damaged, leaking fusion core. Why he no longer has the super regeneration from Season 1, where he could take several bullets and a power armored punch to the chest with no lasting injury, is beyond me. Sometime later, long enough that Novak is no longer in sight, Ghoul Howard starts chewing out Lucy for not taking lethal shots, and only cared if she shot the rope, which she says she did, which is true, but not when she was supposed to. Next scene has the two, having left the dry and cracked desert of the previous, now moving up a craggy pass and getting a view of New Vegas. Lucy asks why only Vegas shot down the nukes, to which Ghoul Howard says it was Senor Bungalow that did it, and being around him is not safe. We then get a cut to the worst scene of Season 1, Cooper learning about vault-tec's plan to nuke America in order to win the game of capitalism. The less said about that, the better, and thankfully we cut to him going home and having Janie pack her things, as he clearly wants to get her out and away from Barbara. Jump to them in their car, driving through a suburban neighbourhood with their dog in the back seat. He reveals they're going to Bakersfield, much as his original plan was in Season 1. However, it is scuppered when practice sirens go off, causing everyone to panic and show just how primed on terror that the people of America are. With that scene ended, we go to Vault 33, with Reg being presented as an actual useless baby, walking through the vault and sucking a lollipop. I should remind you that Reg, along with Betty and Woody, were the Vault 33 Council, while Hank was still there, but now seems to just be a useless idiot. He wandered into the room where Betty and Mr. Waterchip are trying to resolve the water situation, with Betty suggesting they use the temporary filters they built out of spares. Reg stumbles around, making a nuisance out of himself and asking where Norman is. Betty says that he's been sent to 31 for leadership training, which Reg bemoans that he seems to be the only one not getting a promotion, before accidentally breaking some equipment. Betty suggests he go start a club somewhere, which he asks, what kind of club? Before sucking on his lolly, reminding us once again that he is mentally a child. Jump over to 32 now, with Davy complaining to Overseer Stephanie that he is confused because the layout of the vault is different, and Stephanie herself trying to use a computer, which is a bit odd as she is from 31, which was staffed with pre-war vault-tec managers, so she should be expected to at least have some computer skills. Anyway, Davy leaves and there is a conversation between him and Chester, where Davy compliments him on his wife and child, to which Chester says they are not married and the child is not his. It's Bert's. R.I.P. Bert. But Davy does not listen and almost walks into a wall, because you see, the vault is built the opposite way, so he is a very confused old man. Chester enters the office and we get an exchange where Stephanie is starting to show some psychopathic tendencies, suggesting she would like to kill Davy for being annoying, and that she refers to her own unnamed child as it, and that Chester is his carer from now on, and that is going to be his job. Further showing she does not care about her own child, it gets named Chet Jr., simply because that is what the rest of the residents have started calling him, and he is shooed away by her stabbing the desk with a knife. Pan to the screen of her terminal as she tries to send a message to 31, only to be informed communications are down, which is the cue to switch to 31, panning away from terminal, showing the same message, and Bud having a panic attack. You see, Norman has been busy pulling out computer cables, and Bud, being a brain on a Roomba, does not have any hands to fix them with. He does presumably have access to defrost everyone should he need to, as evidenced by how quickly Vault 32 was cleaned up without anyone from Vault 33 being aware that the cleaning was in progress. Based on the number of survival meals that are empty, it looks as though roughly 14 days have passed since Norman entered Vault 31, and we find him collecting condensation and drinking it to survive. Bud is being threatening, of course, saying that he is going to starve, and that he should just climb into a cryopod. But, you see, there is an enemy between Bud and Norman that is preventing him from following through with anything, and that enemy is stairs. Still, this gives us a chance to learn the true extent of Bud's plan. To wait until there is nobody on the surface to disagree with them. Truly, Bud is one of the villains of all time. Bud then demonstrates that he has Wi-Fi control over the vault by shutting off the lighting. Remember this, it will be important later. Skipping the rest of the scene, as not much of note happens, we jump back to Lucy and Ghoul Howard moving over a different rock formation from the previous one, following Hank's power armor footprints. A few steps later, and they spot a man whose abdomen has been smushed to paste by a power armored boot. Once again, this raises questions about Season 1, specifically why Thaddeus still had most of his foot intact and was able to walk on it if getting stepped on does this level of damage. Demonstrating his utter lack of humanity, Ghoul Howard just walks right through the corpse, and the pair approach a stack of cars that has become a home and a shop. Reasoning that the old lady outside must have seen Hank, Lucy goes over to buy some soup and asks questions, but oh, wouldn't you know it, it's joke time. For you see, the old woman is selling flea soup with fresh fleas straight from the top of her head. Oh, doesn't this just tickle your ribs with how quirky it is? Anyway, Lucy takes a sip out of politeness, asks which way Hank went, and the old lady points them down the path, saying he took her son, who owes her money, and to return the money if they find him. Haha, tee-hee, the old woman doesn't care about her own son, just the caps. Ruffle Mau even. The pair move off, and it is at this point that Ghoul Howard decides to ask Lucy what her plan is. To wound Hank and let the Ghoul Howard kill him, but she says no, he will face justice. The two banter a bit and find themselves at the Starlight Drive-In Theatre, and it is here that we get Vault 24. The door to the vault is hidden behind the viewing screen, which raises the question of how people were supposed to get inside the vault when the alarms go off. But hey ho, the door's open now, so off inside we go. Only we don't, because we cut to pre-war with Janie playing Whack-A-Commie, presumably not in Bakersfield where they were headed to. Instead, it's a diner where Cooper Howard has, off-screen, decided to contact Lee Moldava and arrange this meet-up, travel there, and have it, all before Barbara gets home from work. It is in this scene that we learn that Lee Moldava knew about Vault-Tec's plans to start a nuclear war, which means she must have either had another spy at Vault-Tec, just happened to gain access to information stating that the plan was before the show meeting took place, from which Cooper learned it, or she has magic script reading powers. Either way, she continues to be slimy and manipulative in this scene, and insinuates that Senor Bungalow will be the one to start the war, and that perhaps Cooper Howard might want to not spy on him, when Barbara will be in Vegas the following week to sell her cold fusion technology to him. The cold fusion technology that Vault-Tec bought up every company Moldava had ever worked for in order to sit on it, according to her, in Season 1. This means that from a timeline perspective, Lee Moldava almost had working cold fusion. Vault-Tec obtained it via hostile takeover, got it working, and then decided not to use it themselves in order to increase their market cap and profits by charging whatever they like for limitless energy that only they can produce in a resource-deprived world, but instead would sell it to Senor Bungalow so that he can make untold billions of dollars from it, and beat them in the great game of capitalism. And Wilzig just found it. Somehow it got from Senor Bungalow's hands into the hands of the Enclave, and from there back to Moldava in Season 1. This sounds very convoluted to me, but I guess we'll find out in future episodes if the sale goes through or not. Anyway, with Moldava continuing to be utter scum, Cooper takes Janie and leaves. Cut to the Howard home, with Cooper preparing, presumably, dinner, with Barbara sneaking in. The two exchange fake smiles and pleasantries, and then we jump back to Vault 24. Lucy says it's not like any vault she's seen, which at this point is 2 vaults. Uncle Howard says it's one of the more average ones, as he has seen a lot, and in each one he wonders if it's where he's going to find his family alive, dead, or worse. Lucy says that she has seen the experiments in Vault 4, and it was weirder than 33, to which he retorts that Vault 4 did not destroy any towns. He drags Lucy to the controls and gets her to open the elevator, before finding an Ushanka hat with a red star on it. Beware, communism has been here. With mysteries about, they descend. We jump away to Vault 33, with Reg leading his little group of not being ashamed to have been born in a vault, or maybe being related, with 3 other members there. 2 gingers who I do not recognise, and an old lady who I do but cannot remember the name of at this exact point. The 2 gingers keep looking at each other and ask if the rules are going to be changed so that inbreeding is accepted, to which Reg says no, and so the gingers leave. The lady, Mary Ann, asks if her dust allergy could be because of her father falling in love with his cousin, who is her mother. Here we go off on another joke, as Mary Ann starts railing off the, quite frankly, absurd level of cousin relations in her family line, and Reg, well, he's just happy that his little group didn't completely fail. Jumping across to 31, we still have Bud telling Norman to get in the pod. Norman asks what Hank was like pre-war, before a 2-headed millipede crawls down into the room, which Bud says is highly poisonous and not good to eat, but does raise the question of how it got in. With Vault 31 being a cryo storage cell, it would not have 215 years worth of food just lying around for insects to eat and maintain a breeding population, meaning it must have come from the outside. Bud offers once again to inject Norman with the hypodermic needle, which would cause near instantaneous death and decomposition, with his dust being circulated through the vault filtration system and ended up feeding all the crops. Norman, being smart, decides to take a third option, and kicking the hypo so it breaks, goes and opens all the cryopods. Now, remember earlier when Bud demonstrated he had direct Wi-Fi access to the Vault's systems? Well, apparently he can't stop this from happening despite it requiring a computer system. Enough of Vault 31 for one episode, however, as we jump back to 24 with Lucy and Ghoul Howard coming across corpses dressed as communists. Lucy asks why they would be let into a vault, with Ghoul Howard saying perhaps they were not, pulling back some clothing to reveal dum dum da, Senor Bungalow's mind control device, the horror. 24 was a vault being used by Senor Bungalow to mind control Americans into becoming Reds. Moving through the vault reveals more confirming this, before Lucy finds a computer with the drive removed, reasoning Hank must have done it. For the second time in the series, Ghoul Howard steps on something, but rather than being Gulpapoo in Season 1, this time it's a sugar bomb. Following the trail, the pair come to a suspiciously clean and well-preserved box of aforementioned cereal, clearly set up like a trap. Jump scare from behind the medical curtain. Someone is still alive, and it's probably the flea soup lady's son. and he has a mind control device on his neck. He greets them with a "Hello there, Sugar Bomb." Lucy asks what he wants, and he responds with, "I fix everything. Go home, Sugar Bomb." And then his head explodes. Gul Howard picks up the mind control device, and Lucy confirms Hank has never used one of them before. But she will not go home because he's not going to stop hurting people. I think from this scene we're supposed to deduce that Sugar Bomb was a nickname Hank had for Lucy, although I do not recall it ever being said during season 1. However, that could just be my memory. Anyway, on to the final scene of this episode, with Hank entering a Vault-tec mega office. Where is it located? Don't know. Presumably underground somewhere. And with the place completely deserted, he sets up shop, making himself a cuppa and getting dressed into something more suiting his pre-war appearance of sharp suit and tie. He sends out a radio message, presumably to Senor Bungalow, as he says that nobody in Vault-tec knows he is there, and that this facility was working on miniaturization of his brain interface technology, closing off with a threat that once he is done, Senor Bungalow will be begging for Hank to help him. And with that, Season 2, Episode 1 is done, minus some spoilers at the end of what to expect with the rest of the season. In my opinion, if looking at this show separate from the canon setting of Fallout, which Season 1 blatantly was, regardless of what Todd or Nolan said on the matter, I think this episode is not too bad. Not a lot happened in it, as it mostly seems to be setting everything up for the coming episodes, but I didn't detect too many issues with screenplay, and apart from the jokes and seemingly bizarre path everyone took to get to the movie theatre, I'd give this episode a solid 6. The acting was good for the most part, the pre-war scenes dragging it down this time around rather than the reverse of the previous season, and setting up Senor Bungalow as the shadow, if not primary antagonist, to be revealed once everyone gets to Vegas. Now, a new segment here, which I am calling Everything It Got Wrong. Imaginative, I know. Robert Edwin House, as far as can be discerned, was neither a sociopath nor inventor of a mind control device that would make people's heads explode. We do know that his company, Robco, developed the Pip-Boy, the standard terminal operating system, iBots, Protectrons and SentryBots, but there is no record of him ever getting into bar fights, and the most was a scandal involving him dating a starlet. The Mr. Handy was not a Robco product, but was General Atomics International, so there is no reason for protesters to be smashing one up while striking against Robco. The Great Khans never took Novak. They either remained in Red Rock Canyon, were exterminated, relocated by the NCR, or moved to Wyoming with the followers of the Apocalypse. There is no evidence of a store in Novak run by anyone named Darla. There is a medical station, the reception desk run by Geanie-mae, and the Dinobite gift shop. Dinky the dinosaur is facing the wrong direction. There is no pool in Novak. The Starlight Drive-In does not exist in the Mojave. The closest would be the Mojave Drive-In. Vault 24 does not exist in the Mojave. It is cut content, with the only Vault suit remaining in the game files, which can only be spawned with console commands. With that, thank you for listening to this. Next week is episode 2. Thank you, and good day.